USC at Oregon. Oregon is a 9.5 favorite on FanDuel. Over under set at 59.5. So a lot of scoring projected in this one. The Trojans are hot right now. Zach, 3 straight wins. Can they keep their playoff hopes alive with another win? I'd say if USC wins this one against Oregon, they are likely to make the playoffs. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say it's for sure, but I would say they are likely to make the playoffs. The Ducks can make the conference title game if chalk happens in the Big Ten and Michigan beats Ohio State. As long
Mm.
as they win this one and beat Washington and Michigan beats Ohio State, Oregon is in the Big Ten championship game. Now, you know, you have to rely on Michigan to beat Ohio State there, which I know Michigan's won the past 4, but definitely looks like Ohio State is the better team right now. However, this is one that I don't think Dan Lanning is going to let his team lose, personally. What are your thoughts?
I think on the surface, I think the line feels high, right? 9.5 points feels high. USC's ranked 15th, Oregon's ranked 7th. Um, and a lot of people are out there talking about how Oregon hasn't beaten anybody. They have no ranked wins, yada yada yada. Uh, I, I found it interesting though as I was looking at Oregon's schedule. You know, they've allowed over 20 points in regulation one time, and that was to the number 2 team in the country. And I think defensively, people don't understand how good Oregon's defense is. And by the way, that 30 that Indiana put up, that was only on 321 yards. So some of that was because of short fields and special teams. So a lot
Two
of people,
interceptions by Dante Moore in that game.
yeah, I think a lot of people are looking at USC's offense and they're saying, "Hey, Oregon's not going to know what hit them. They have not been good defensively." And I just want to pump the brakes on that. I think Oregon's defense is legit, and they have not faced the greatest offenses in the world. But you compare their defense to what USC has put on the field. They struggled against Notre Dame. They struggled against Illinois. You know, in both those games, they allowed 34 points. And I think Oregon's offense, I know they're going to be down receivers, but I think the potential for Oregon's offense is actually a bit better than both of those teams, especially if Dante Moore continues his ascent. I'm wary because I think we've felt this, we felt the hype with Lincoln Riley and USC before. And I think it's justified more now than it has been in the past. I think Maiava's playing well. I think King at running back, he's playing well. I think defensively they're getting better. Danton Lynn's done a great job with that unit. But again, I look at personnel, I look at where the game is being played. I don't see a ton of advantages here for the Trojans.
Yeah, I mean, the things that USC does really well, Oregon does a good job of stopping. Makai Lemon needs to be huge in this game, but when you look at Makai Lemon, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him, if anything, this is just one more positive about his game. He gets a lot of yards after the catch, and one of the reasons why he gets so many yards after the catch is because he's very elusive and he's able to break tackles and get away from defenders. He has the third most missed tackles forced in the Big Ten among wide receivers. So he's one of the shiftiest wide receivers in the Big Ten. He has, a lot of yards after the catch. I believe he's first, if not second, in the most yards after the catch in the Big Ten. So he's just a very elusive guy. And then in addition to that, you have Lake McCree, who leads the Big Ten in tight ends and contested catches right now. So
Hmm.
you have all of these weapons on the outside and and over the middle to be able to get to these guys. But the problem is Jayden Maiava has played his worst football on the road this season.
Mhm.
So what does Jayden Maiava look like? I know it's just a little bit up north. It's not like, excuse me, it's not like he's traveling across the country to Illinois or Notre Dame or something like that, where he didn't have, really Nebraska was his worst game on the road, but they still came out and won that game, and he was able to run the ball. So I think it's going to be really important to run Jada Maiava in this one. I think that he's going to have to really rely on his wide receivers a whole lot. Obviously, just throw it up and let Makai Lemon go for it, let Lake McCree go for it, try to get the ball out to Makai Lemon in space and let him try to make some moves. But the issue here is, Zach, that Oregon's secondary, they do not miss a whole lot of tackles. Like no Oregon defensive back this season has more than 5 missed tackles on the season.
Mhm.
And you might say, oh, well, they're not really going after, you know, teams all that much and everything. No, but there's a lot of DBs in the Big Ten with 15 or more missed tackles, 10 or more missed tackles.
Mhm.
Like you got to refresh, not refresh, but you got to really go down and load the page a couple times to be able to get down there to your first Oregon defensive back because they're disciplined. They do a good job breaking down, getting the tackle, whether it's on a running back, whether it's on a wide receiver. They do a really good job, and it is something that I do think works in Oregon's advantage. Now, the one thing I will say that USC has to do that Indiana did is they have to have explosive plays. They have to figure out a way to get explosive plays. And
Mm.
what they have to do is they have to be able to run the ball well so they can get the safeties out from over the top. And that's one thing that Indiana, I mean, they didn't run the ball great in that one, but they ran the ball well enough that Oregon had to respect it. And so Indiana was able to get some big plays without safety help over the top. Whether it was a slant, they were running for it, or a deep pass down the side. You have to be able to run the ball well in this one. So King Miller, I don't know if he necessarily needs to get 100 yards rushing, but he does need to be effective enough to make Oregon respect it, which I think he can be. But that Oregon defensive line and their linebackers, they were letting teams run on them a little bit, like Northwestern early in the year. But since then, they've been really good at stopping the run.
Yeah. Well, and I think the counterpoint there is Oregon's run game is starting to really take shape. And I think USC has done a better job defensively than a year ago for sure. But I think if you're going to stack up to me run games right now versus their collective run defenses, I think it's still advantage Oregon against USC's run defense compared to USC's run offense against Oregon's run defense. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, so I I do think there is a question of Dante Moore, who I think has the raw talent and he has been good, but I do question sometimes his decision making, especially under pressure. I think Danton Lynn, I think he's going to cook some things up to put some pressure on Dante Moore, and I think things could get a little dicey there. And I think I think that's USC's pathway to victory is forcing a bit of an implosion. We just we made fun of Marcel Reed for what he did this past week at South Carolina, imploding in the first half. I'm not saying they need that from Dante Moore, but they need to force him into mistakes. I think if USC wants to win this game, and I'm just not sure they're going to be able to force enough mistakes to make that happen.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Dante Moore to me is the interceptions, like you mentioned. He had 2 against Indiana. Um, but the but when you look at the 2 biggest games for Oregon so far this season, it's Penn State and Indiana. And like we have to give Oregon credit. Penn State was still playing good football at that time. Were they playing
Yep.
the best football out there? No. But when we were being critical of Penn State, it wasn't like, "Oh no, they're going to go 500 this season." It was like, "Are they going to go undefeated?" Right? There's a lot
Mhm.
of criticism when you're trying to chase undefeated national championship. That team did not look like a team that was going to go what are they now? 4-8, 4-6 or whatever. Like
6, yeah.
they did not look like a team that was going to do that. And they did not play like a team that was going to do that against Oregon. Penn State had the lead
Mhm.
in overtime in that game. And Oregon, they had yeah, because
Yeah,
Oregon scored, and then Penn State
they
scored. No, Penn State scored, and then Oregon scored, and then Oregon scored, and then
Mm-hmm.
okay, sorry, I was right. But the biggest thing in that Penn State game than the Indiana game was what you mentioned in the interceptions. Bishop Fitzgerald has not had a single interception this season since Michigan. For a long time, he was leading the nation in interceptions with 5 on the season. He has to get an interception in this one, and Lynn has to do a spectacular job on third down. They need to get Oregon into 3rd and 4 or longer, and they have to make third down rely on Dante Moore. Dante Moore has not always, at points he has, but has not always been his best on third down this season. Look at Wisconsin, right? I know it's raining, I know it's bad conditions in that one,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a game where he was not first half against Penn State. That was a game where he was not great on third down. What happened though in the second half? They were 50% better. They were over 50% on third down in the second half against Penn State, and that's when the offense started scoring, and that's when they started to open things up. So if USC can get an interception or two, and they can hold firm on third down in some key situations, USC can win this game.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to pick them to win it. Do you
Yeah.
have any other thoughts before we get into our score predictions?
There is a world where Maiava and Makai Lemon go supernova and just throw all over the yard. Like I do think that is out there,
They
but
have that ability, yes.
yeah, but I so like USC fans that are watching this and they're like, don't you know how good Maiava is? We know. We know that Maiava could make this into his Heisman moment. Um, because there'll be drama. All you people, stupid people talk about
Did
Heisman.
you
We
see
need to
the
do a
article?
Heisman video.
Did you see the
I
article?
don't watch Ohio State, but sorry, everything's coming back to Ohio State. I apologize.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyway, Maiava he could win the Heisman with this game. And I would be all for it if he upsets USC, gets the Trojans into the playoff. I think that would catapult him into the conversation and into the driver's seat, quite honestly. But I just think the likelihood of that with Oregon's defense at Autzen, I just don't see that. I do think it's close. I don't love the line. I think USC has become more physical, but I do think the Notre Dame game kind of showed us a little bit like there is a ceiling for USC that I don't think it's not the same tier as Oregon. I think the big question with Oregon is, are they going to start to live up to the tier that we know they can be with their talent level? I think they start to show it, but I still think Oregon, I think Dante Moore has a couple struggles in this game, but I've got Oregon winning 27-23.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say about the third down conversions, which I neglected to say, but is an important stat, is right now USC is 10th in the Big Ten in third down conversions allowed. They're in the bottom half of the Big Ten of that. So even though Dante Moore has struggled a little bit at times on third down this season, they haven't struggled like USC has to stop teams on third down, which is one of my biggest reasons why I have Oregon winning this game 34-24 over USC. I think Oregon's going to run the ball a lot. I think they're going to put themselves in
Yep.
favorable situations on third down. I think that with Kenyon Sadiq most likely being back, because he was back against Minnesota. Even if they don't have DeCoy Moore, Gary Bryant Jr. back for this game, I still think Dante Moore is going to have good targets to be able to go to. Both tight ends are very capable, obviously, and that offensive line should be able to protect him well enough. Unless USC finds that pass rush that we saw at the beginning of the season. It's not necessarily been gone all season, but it's not been as relentless as we saw at the beginning of the year. So maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. I do think USC has a chance here in this game, but I would say it's very, very not very, very. It is likely that Oregon wins this game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed.
all right.